Right, so let's see how we can use this post model to store our data. So first thing we need to do is basically we need to construct, or we need to initialize our model inside our data manager. So let's say post require, and let's go to this what was it, src and models and post model. Right, so now we add the post model, and let's say we need to import this test data to our database collection, which is post. Right, so all we have to do is basically we can construct a function. Let's say import data, and let's use an arrow function, and we can simply say post.create. So you can see that once this model has been created, when you enter dot, it will showcase all the necessary functions that you can perform. Right, so that is how this model thing works. So this model is basically constructed by using Mongoose. So Mongoose is a JavaScript library that handle all of these database related functions. Right, so it will basically return all the functions or expose all the functions for us. So as developers, all you have to do is call the necessary functions in our application. Right, so it will be quite easy to use Mongoose in order to save our data with MongoDB. Anyway, so what we need is create function, and we need to pass this function with this sample post. Right, then it will basically store all the necessary data in our database. But it is not the good practice when we are dealing with this data, because this is a IO operation, which means input output operation. So what happens is that this process will hold until this operation is finished. So you may know that JavaScript is a single threaded application or single threaded language. So if your thread is going to hold until one process is going to finish, then your server will be in a very hard position, I would say, because obviously there will be a lot of connections that is going to make concurrently with your database. So for each time, if your thread is going to hold until those data is going to store, your server will be busy, and its performance will be dropped as well. Therefore, you need to make this function as an asynchronous function. So asynchronous function is basically a function that is called asynchronously, which means it doesn't hold your process until it's going to finish. So what happens is that when you invoke such a asynchronous functions, it will be called, but it will be hold until it won't be hold, but what it does is basically it will return a message once that process is finished. So until that return is happen, your process can be used, or your thread can be used to do further processings, right? So that's how that asynchronous function works. And let's say this function is going to be asynchronous, and asynchronous function can have two states. So either it can be successful or it can be failed, right? So async function either be successful or it can be failed. So if it is failed, it's an exception that needs to be catched and handled, right? And either way we need to try first this function, and if it is failed, then it will make an exception, right? So this behavior can be handled by using a try catch statement. So try is basically, it will try to connect that is specific no, actually the try will invoke the connection, and however if it is failed, then it will go to this catch line and it will execute the necessary exception for you. So this line needs to be go here, and now it can be await, which means it will be await asynchronously, so your process won't be called. And if it is if this function made successful, then we can say data is imported, right? But however, if that process or if that functionality won't execute it successfully, it will go to this catch block and there will be error, so that error can be logged like this, right? So that is the way how we can define an asynchronous function. And let's try to invoke this function. So since there is no main method, what we can do is we can manipulate these functions by using terminal, right? In order to go to the terminal environment, we can use this process.argv. So I will first show you what is that, otherwise you will be confused. So if I simply log process.argv and let me rerun our data manager, so you can see there will be a array like this. So basically it consists of all the argument that we have entered in our terminal. So this node.exe is basically this argument, and data manager is this argument. Likewise, if we entered any other argument like that, then it will be displayed like this. So if we need to invoke a specific functions by using our terminal, all we have to do is, if we encounter this sort of argument, then we have to tell Node application to execute that specific function, right? So what we can do is basically we can have a if condition there, and let's have process.argv, and this is basically the third item, right? So third item is the second index, because this is an array. So let's go to the second item, and we have to check whether it is import or not. And if it is import, then we can simply execute this function, right? So let's clear and rerun the data manager. Now you can see data is imported, right? Because I have typed it as like this. So import will be argument 2, then argument 2 is import, so it will invoke this function. And once this function is invoked, it will basically create all the necessary documents for us with respect to this JSON file. So now if I go to my MongoDB compass and simply refresh this one, okay, I think yeah, it was a small issue. Actually, all you have to do is basically restart your compass. So once you restart the compass, it will show you a new collection that is created. So it is named as post, even if you specify your model like this. So I think this is automatically generated, therefore we don't need this previous collection again, so I will remove that. And once you go to this collection, you can see all the JSON payload specified in the post.json has been stored like individual documents, right? So it is automatically having this ID field as well, so you don't need to define IDs explicitly, and the title is there, content is there, and created at time also there, right? So that's how we import data, and I think it's better to have functions to delete this test data as well, because when we are going to do a production level, we need to clear all the test data in our database. Therefore let's create another function. So I will simply copy that and name it as delete data, and instead of create we need to call delete function, so delete many, and we don't need to pass any JSON payloads with that, right? So then this function can be executed as another if. So let's say else if, and let's say argument is delete, and I can call delete data function once it encounters this argument, right? So let's close this one and let's say delete as an argument. Yeah, it still says data is imported because I forgot to change this logger line. Now let's execute it again. Now it say data is deleted, something like that. Then if you go to the compass and refresh this collection, you can't see any data because we have deleted all the test data that it resides. But if you invoke the import function again, it will basically import the data back to our collection. So you can refresh it again, so you can see all the data is there, right? So that's how we can use Mongoose to store data, and yeah, let's see more other stuff in the next video.